This is Marketing Uncomplicated. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the podcast again. I have a special dear friend of mine who's with us today. Dr. Lucy De La Cruz's journey is a vibrant tapestry of cultural experiences, surgical excellence, and a commitment to diversity. Raised in Cuba and Africa before settling in Miami, her multicultural upbringing ignited a passion for embracing different cultures. She co-founded the American Medical Student Association, AMSA, in the Dominican Republic, initiating scholarships and resources for local students. During her residency at the University of Miami, Dr. De La Cruz conducted groundbreaking research on nipple-sparing mastectomy oncologic outcomes, earning international acclaim. Her career blends academia and a clinical practice with roles at institutions like the University of Pennsylvania and Ionova Shar Cancer Institute. Now, as Chief of Breast Cancer Surgery at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital, Dr. De La Cruz is the youngest Latina woman to hold such a prestigious position in a U.S. academic center. Her story embodies dedication, leadership, and excellence, inspiring aspiring surgeons and diversity advocates worldwide. Welcome, Lucy.
Hi, Sasha.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I couldn't think of a better place to be today in a rainy day in New York.
Oh, we gotta miss those rainy days in New York.
Yeah,
Can't
I'm
say
sure
much
you
for
do.
that.
Me either. I'm more of a sun and palm trees kind of gal.
Yes. Hence the, growing up in Miami and me migrating down here. You might have had some influence on that.
I can recall.
Yes. So the reason why I think your story is an amazing one, just coming from a background of diverse cultures and entering into the, the medical world that you have, I do want to start off by talking about the importance of personal brand. And I think that it is super important no matter where you are, whether you are a business owner yourself and you have ventured out into the entrepreneurial world, or you are working for an institution like the Georgetown Medical Institution. And I think it's important that we touch on it just based on that. Personal brand is important no matter what you're doing as the world builds and becomes a lot more connected to each other, whether it is on social media presence, whether it is at networking events, both online and offline. But I think building a presence for people to get to know who you are outside of what you do on a day-to-day basis is super important. So why don't we dive in a little bit there?
Well, thanks, Sasha, because that's technically and really on brand. And I say this with no pun intended, but it's actually something that I've been very vocal about in my community. I'm a breast surgical oncologist. Most of the physicians who are really early pioneers on the social media world have been dermatologists, have been plastic surgeons. But really the oncology world has been some sort of kind of uncharted waters for specifically in the breast cancer world. And I think that we're seeing a little bit more of that happening in the last couple of years. I'm not like an influencer by any means. I try to, kind of influence those that I touch their lives every day in my clinic, in my OR with medical students and the residents. But really, like when I first started talking about, I would go to conferences, for example, and my colleagues would be like, why are you posting all this stuff on social media? And by the way, none of the things that I post are related to breast cancer treatment, my surgeries, my patient outcomes. They're really about the human side of Lucy. And they were like, I don't understand that you're an academic surgeon. You are like an associate professor, like you're the chief of a department. You should be more uptight about who you are as a person and not kind of open up so much. And I think that that's kind of what maybe the patients 50 years ago were used to seeing from a physician. Obviously a woman like me would not be the person that they would come to get cancer treatment from. I would tell you 50 years ago was a very different, first of all, they were men. Second of all, probably not, Lucy Maria de la Cruz.
Sure.
And even today, I mean, the minority of surgeons are Hispanics. Mm-hmm. And I'm, an immigrant and a Hispanic and a woman. So it's I call it the millefleur, like, when you have the multi-layered.
Millefeuille.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am one of those with a dulce de leche flavor.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, millefeuille is a French how shall I say, dessert. That is layers and layers and layers of very thin, what do you call that?
It's like a cream. It's like a cream base
With puff pastry.
puff
So
pastry.
it's a pastry and not a dessert, and it's just very thin, multiple layers as you go in. And I mean, you cut right through it, and you can hear the crunch, and it melts right in your mouth. So with
Yeah.
the dulce de leche, would make it even
Cream.
better. Yeah, totally.
So that's kind of what I call the journey of any, minority, any immigrant, a woman wanting to pursue a career in surgery. And then you kind of want to go out there and put yourself out there, show your personal life as, with obviously just showing them a human part. I mean, I take care of a lot of women undergoing cancer treatment, and I want them to know that I am a mom,
Yeah.
that above all, that I'm a surgeon, I'm a woman. I have friends that I relate to them in some shape, form. I mean, I see a lot of patients that are my age, and they want to be able to see that their surgeon, their doctor, that they can be identified, and they feel some sense of like, okay, this person understands where I'm coming from when I want a treatment, when I'm requesting, more empathy, when when I know, when I tell
You're a
them I know
human.
that we're human.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of like the doctor being a robot, like we are humans.
Yeah.
I do struggle with like, work life balance and, with parenthood and with, things that I do outside of work. And I don't completely go out there, but I want them to see a little piece of that mille de fleur of
Yeah.
Lucy that is not the thing that they see when they're in clinic with me.
Yeah.
Um, and that also relates to the fact that, you know, patients in our generation, most of them have Instagram, most of them have social media, and they like to know what you're doing also, right? Because when they're meeting me, they don't know that I'm participating in all these meetings, that I'm publishing. They don't have access. I mean, unless
Yep.
you really go deep, deep, deep down and dive into
Into the
like,
academia world,
you don't know
which
what I'm
most
publishing
patients
about.
don't
Don't.
do. Yeah.
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 Actually, some of them do, but
Yeah.
most of them don't.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a way that I can like, kind of summarize how, in a
Yes.
nutshell,
Yes.
in an easy, quick fix for them to look and say, oh, Lucy presented at the American Society of Breast Surgeons. Oh, Lucy was just at the Surgical Society of Oncology. So this is relevant. Oh,
Yeah.
this is something, and go from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because I mean, one of the biggest things that patients look at from the standpoint of deciding their doctor from a marketing standpoint is your Google My Business reviews, right? Or your ZocDoc reviews, or wherever you have your reviews. You guys might have your own separate reviews on MedStar, right? So I think that this is a nice addition to the fact that they get to see your reviews, but then they also get to take a peek behind the curtain in terms of who is going to be my doctor and who is going to have that bedside manners, which, let's be honest, a lot of doctors don't have. And specifically also as it relates to cancer, because it is a subject matter that when told you have, X and, you have to go through, different kinds of procedures and processes, then it becomes a little worrisome. And you want somebody to feel like there is that care and that knowing that they're going to be there for you.
I think that that's so important. I remember like when I first started talking about it, it was probably 3, 4 years ago
Yeah.
when I told one of my colleagues, we were in Vegas at one of our national meetings, and I say, listen, there are no more yellow pages.
Yeah.
There are no more white pages. Remember when your parents used to have these huge blocks,
Books. Yeah.
and then you used to like look up, breast surgeon. And now it's a lot of people go through social media. I don't have TikTok yet. I haven't really gotten into that world, but I would say like a lot of my patients, like you said, they want a connectivity. They want a
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
They want to be able to kind of know who's the person that they're going to meet.
Yeah.
And I would tell you, a lot of my patients say, "Oh my God, I saw your reel with your kids, and I saw that you did this." Actually, I was just at the women's in surgery meeting in Tampa, and
Yeah.
this is exactly the topic that we talked about. And by the way, that meeting was not for 75-year-old surgeons or 50-year-old surgeons. I'm not
Yes.
that far away from 50-year-olds, so I'm not calling anybody old by any means.
Yeah.
But it was for the new generation of surgeons, the
Yeah.
new generation that's in medical school, in high school,
Sure.
in undergrad. They have Instagram, they have social media, they look for resources on social media.
Yeah.
That is an outlet that they have that they need to understand very early on, that the way that I learned how to become a surgeon and the way that, perception of like how people came to you is not the same when I graduated from medical school in 2004, when we
Mhm.
had MySpace, or I don't even know what we had in 2000. What
Yeah,
did
me
we,
neither.
I
Well,
think it was like
Facebook. I mean,
Facebook,
yeah,
but I think it was like MySpace, Facebook. And I remember I
MySpace.
thought it was
Yeah.
the oddest, weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And now the 15-year-old will say, oh yeah, there's this plastic I'm like, why are you looking at, I mean, all these things. And this is how in the next 10 years, people are
Mm-hmm.
going to say, who is the breast surgeon? Who is the surgical oncologist? Who is the medical oncologist, the go-to person?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And guess where the market, by the way, guess where, like for example, when Olivia Munn, for example, just
Yeah.
came out that she had a diagnosis of breast cancer. Where do they find the people that are going to be the experts to
Yeah.
talk on the news?
Yeah.
They're going to Google.
Instagram.
They're going to go on Instagram and see who
Yeah.
has followers and
Yeah.
who's going to be the voice of reason to have that. And obviously, you have to have the credentials. You can't just be some quack who just puts their no. I mean, we're all like
What's the
board
backup? Yeah.
certified, fellowship trained. I have a reputable job and a career. So obviously, if you have that plus an influential platform that you can tell other little girls that look like me,
Sure. Yeah.
other patients who, I have a lot of patients now who follow me on Instagram and
Yeah.
social media, and they like that connection. They always connected to their doctor.
Yes.
Not that they reach out via the Instagram to say, hey, because most of them I do give them my cell phone, but they feel like they know what I'm up to, and
Mm-hmm.
they know that
They
they
feel
feel very,
safe.
they do, and actually they feel proud, which is actually
Yeah.
an interesting thing. They're
This
like,
is
I'm so
my
proud.
doctor.
This
Yeah.
is my doctor.
Yeah.
And again, this is such an incredible platform
Yeah.
to be thoughtfully used for patients, for physicians. And I think in our field, like I said, it was frowned upon. I mean, I think it still is frowned upon. I think in our cultural like
Mm-hmm.
realm, in the world of academia, some people may not think that it's okay for me to post pictures of my kid and of me to like post things that I'm doing on the weekend, and to talk about my girlfriends and say how important it is for them to be in my life, or
Sure.
to even put things, for example, things that I struggle with. Sometimes I post them, and like work-life balance and how I struggle
Mm-hmm.
between how to be a good mom and be a good surgeon and be a good woman and be all these things at once.
No, absolutely. And one thing I think you touch on, which is so important, is to use these platforms in a correct manner, because what's happening with the TikToks of the world, what's happening with the Instagrams of the world, and specifically like TikTok, is that there are these influencers that are coming out that are talking about things that they have no understanding, they have no knowledge, they have no education. So it behooves people like you in your space to come out and break through that noise, break through that clutter, and say, no, this is what's happening and this is what you should be thinking about if at some point, you are in a position that you need to be thinking about these type of things, right? It's pushing out the BS, and it's bringing in the correct knowledge and the correct information, because there's too much out there right now.
Actually, I call it the antidote.
Yeah,
We have to
that's
be the
great.
antidote.
Yeah,
And if we're not doing it, then we're doing a disservice to a lot
the
of patients,
public.
a lot of people, because you are putting influence in the wrong hands.
Yeah,
And I like I said, I don't give medical advice online, and I don't talk about breast cancer, mostly because that's not the way that I've kind of wanted to brand myself. Ultimately, because I feel like I'm not just, not to say just, but there are so many layers to me that I
sure.
want to leave it open for just to see where my life takes me when I become the next version of Lucy, because it's an ever changing process
Yeah.
of growth
Yes.
and of development in your career and in your path. And so also to see, like, I want to be able to see what really, like you said, what is needed out
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
and I think, right now I have a really full-time job as a surgeon, as a mom, as a single mom, as a woman, that I feel like once I settled into that space, I'm
Yeah.
going to want to devote, like, I mean, I want to do it right, like you said, right? And I want to do it thoughtfully. And it takes a lot of resources. It takes energy. It takes resources. But in the meantime, I'm branding myself as really, I tell this to people all the time. I just had lunch with a friend of mine, and he comes in a suit. He's going to clinic, and I'm like, "Is that how you go to clinic?" And he's like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody goes to clinic like that." And I go, "Yeah, I don't brand myself like that."
It's a little
I'm
uncomfortable, no? And maybe that's why doctors' bedside manners are so stiff, because they
uptight.
feel so like crunched in into their suits. No offense to
Well,
anybody who wears
actually,
beautiful suits to the
no. I
office,
mean,
but
obviously, I'm wearing a white shirt
yeah.
today, but I'm actually wearing like golden goose and a pair of like
But
green
there's room to
jeans.
breathe.
Yes. So I'm like, well, I go like this to clinic, and I tell this joke because all the time, because I don't wear a white coat,
Yeah.
and and I always told medical students and residents, you have to be authentically you. And I think we do a really bad job in that in medicine. We want everybody to fit the mold, to wear a white coat, to wear your hair the same way, to do this the same way, and to be like a certain way. And I think that's great. But I think if you are authentically yourself and you're kind and you have good bedside manners and um, you're empathetic to your patients, patients don't care what you wear as long
Yeah.
as you're not like wearing like, dirty clothes and stuff like that. So I remember when I first started my job as a chief,
Yeah.
I had replaced two amazing surgeons who had been there in the past. They're older than me. They're all both female. And I remember I wasn't wearing pearls, and they both were pearls, interestingly enough. No
Well,
offense to pearls. I
that's
love pearls.
Washington, D.C. for you.
Well, I don't have pearls. I don't
Yeah.
I don't own any pearls, which I would love some. So, but I don't have any.
Yeah.
And I remember I walked in and I was wearing leather pants, this white shirt and these like combat boots.
Yeah.
And so I walk in, and I remember like the front desk girl like as I walk in, just
Is
like
that our doctor? Not let alone our chief.
And I remember like she like literally was typing and she just goes, and I'm like, "Hi, good morning," and I walk right in, and I'm not wearing a white coat. I'm like, so then I remember like one of my patients, later on in life, like after I'd gone treatment, my 1 year follow up with her, she goes, Dr. De La Cruz, you know what I loved about you? And I go,
Yeah.
no. She goes, I love that you had sparkling shoes when I came to see you.
That's so sweet.
And she's like, every time I come, I want to see what you're wearing because
Yeah.
you defy the law of medicine.
Yeah, of what people think that you should be.
What people think a doctor should look like. And by the way, what I look like has nothing to do with how I am technically capable of doing their surgery, how well I can take care of their cancer.
Oh, absolutely.
And my surgical outcomes. Some people may judge it, but I'll tell you, the moment that I have a conversation with patients and that, you develop this rapport with them and you have good bedside manners, which is ultimately what you really need to have, skills and a good bedside manner, then everything else kind of falls between and then it becomes your brand, and then now when they recommend you to another patient, they're like, oh, my patients, my doctor has an Instagram, girly surgeon, and she wears golden goose, or she may be wearing some gold, tight, like leather pants when you see her. And it's completely fine. She's phenomenal. And she'll tell you all about, she'll talk to you about your, vaginal health and also your breast cancer.
I mean, because it's the concept. Totally. And it's all about the concept of why does it have to be a somber topic? Yes, it is a topic sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time, that when you've reached a point in life and this is a conversation that you're having, or hopefully it's not, there should still be light at the end of the tunnel in terms of supporting. I mean, even though there may not be, but it's like we have to embrace and remove and support that person mentally as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the stiff behavior of, oh, I feel awful because I've been diagnosed with X, and then I have to go see this doctor who's going to further not make me feel warm and fuzzy and sparkly and happy. And at the end of the day, you are a woman that is treating women, and women, I mean, we're different beasts, right? And like, we just have this need to push forward, and that's who we are. And we continue to push forward with everything in life.
I mean, I couldn't have, I think what you just said, light.
Yeah.
So my name means light.
Yes.
And actually, one of my patients once brought this up to me and goes, Dr. De La Cruz, did you know that your name means light of the cross?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
And she's like you just said, and we forget about that. I think the fact that if you can make a connection with someone in a dark place in their life,
yes,
and you could just, not that I'm going to make lighthearted conversation, it's a tough conversation, but the fact that you can be that kind of something that they can hold on to.
Their North Star.
Yeah. And say, you know what, like I have somebody that's there for me. I have this like champion. You need a champion.
Yeah.
And by the way, you need a champion for everything in life. I always say, like, find your champion or champions.
Yeah.
And make sure to harvest and nourish those relationships, because everybody needs one. And you definitely need one in the breast cancer journey. When you treat breast cancer, and I always say this, it's a multidisciplinary approach. So we treat them, the radiation oncologist treats them, the medical oncologist treats them, the radiologist.
There's a team.
There's a whole team of us. It's usually about 6 to 8 people. I mean, the plastic surgeon, the nutritionist, the physical therapist, and then the social worker. I mean, it's a whole machinery. But so what I find that the most rewarding of my job, and I say this all the time when patients say, Dr. De La Cruz, thank you. And I say, you don't need to thank me, because I get more from you than you get from me.
Yeah.
It's the understanding that I come to work every day and I am able to break the mold, which is so rewarding, do it my job and do it because I love my job,
Yeah.
help patients in a positive way and give them that light that maybe they can't find at home, they can't find with their support system. Maybe some patients don't have support
Sure.
system.
Yeah. They may be alone. So,
Yeah. And so to not be that robot that society expects physicians to be, um,
yes.
I think that that's what I enjoy the most
Yeah.
about the job, the fact that I can be the human, the surgeon, but above all human to my
Mm-hmm.
patients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that just breaks all the perception or the old perception that you don't need to be nice if you're good.
Yeah.
I think you could be nicer if you're actually, it could be even better if you're nice and good
Yeah.
or really
True.
good.
Yeah. True.
And so that's the perception that I'm trying, above all, I'm trying
Yes.
to break that mold. That you come to my office and you can leave saying, there's a doctor who is nice. By the way, I'm not saying that there are no nice doctors. I'm saying there's
Yes.
plenty of us. But I think that there's a generational shift. And I'm
There's
not
a
saying my dad,
differentiation of bedside manners for
yes.
sure.
And my dad was a physician and he
Mm-hmm.
graduated from medical school in 1970. So he was a phenomenal doctor and
Yeah.
he was human. And I think that we forget sometimes that those patients are with us for 15 minutes or 30 minutes out of their day.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Make it
they
the best
leave.
part of their day, no matter what they're
No,
going through.
exactly. Because you don't know what they're doing when they get home.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're struggling financially. You don't know if they're single parents. You don't know if their child is sick, if they've lost a child, if they've lost a parent, if they've lost a spouse.
Yeah.
You have no, if they've lost their job because they now have a cancer diagnosis. You have no idea. And I tell this to my staff all the time. I go, listen, their experience here should not be their bad experience of the day. This should
Yes.
be a place that they find as a refuge, even though they're going through cancer, rather than, oh my God, I have to go there and I have to feel horrible about this experience or anything like that.
Yeah. So there's three things I want to touch on. That was amazing. Um, Uniquely you, which is what you talked about, and then breaking through the mold. So I think let's make sure to touch on that. So uniquely you, meaning continuing to build your brand, your personal brand, and then breaking through the mold. I want to dig in more about you being a Hispanic woman and coming up in such an amazingly powerful position. And then thirdly, it's the concept of how are people like you and doctors like you going to continue to push this forward for it actually to be taught in medical school? Because maybe there needs to be a marketing course of like how to brand themselves or how to come out, and really connect with your patients and so on and so forth. So let's talk about a few things. I know I threw like
Oh
three
my God.
different
Okay,
things at
I'm
you,
trying
but
to keep.
let's talk through the continuation of uniquely you and your brand, and then breaking through the mold of being where your background is from, and really coming up in an environment where we shall say that more women are coming up in these positions, and then also breaking through older white male like positions.
Well, I'm going to tell you that's exactly what I want my brand to be.
Yeah.
I want to be, and I hope to be, by the way, one day, the inspiration for everybody, all these little women, and I mean, all these little girls and women that are younger than me behind me to say, there was this person who's this
Inspired
crazy
me.
Lucy de la Cruz,
Yeah.
this person who once wore sneakers and like and not just the look, but like being authentically themselves and was able to make it and didn't have to change. By the
Yes.
way, I'm going to tell you, I come from a place where I did change.
Yes.
When I first graduated and I would go to work, I wasn't me. Like I wasn't who I was. Wasn't who the Sasha who you know me since I'm in my
Yes.
20s. Like it
Yes.
wasn't that person. It was the white coat, very like, structured.
Regimented,
By the way,
structured.
I'm still regimented. I'm still
Yes.
structured. But I wasn't able to really feel myself and to talk to my patients about, I talk to patients about faith and I talk to patients about hope and I talk to patients in medicine. We don't talk about faith. That's something that nobody talks about in patients. And how many times am I in a room with a patient who tells me, Dr. Dela Cruz, I really needed to hear that today.
Yeah.
And by the way, like I'm not here selling, I'm not a prophet. I'm not here like converting people. I'm just, kind of the human part. And so one of the things that I really want to do, and that's why I actually just post things on social media about my persona outside of work and how I kind of change the conversation
Yeah.
to making it okay for somebody to be young and spunky and cool and still be a serious surgeon who's
Sure.
respected, because I have a balance. I'm doing research, but I'm also like, going out with my friends, and I'm also a mom. And these things are really hard to balance. So
Mhm.
one of the things is the women's in surgery just had this topic on one of their symposiums, building your brand.
Yes.
And you're right.
Amazing.
You're right. I mean, nobody else talks about it.
Yeah.
This is Sharona Ross is she's a hepatobiliary surgeon who's out of Tampa, and I met her when I was a resident, and she has been breaking the mold since a
Since
very
day
long time.
one. Yeah.
And I remember the first time I met her, I was like, "Who's this woman?
Yeah.
She's fabulous. Like, how does she do this
Yeah.
in a very male-dominated field, which is pancreas surgery?"
Sure.
And she's like out there. I mean, I remember she was wearing like this. She was talking about her Harley, and I was like, "Oh my God,
I
this
love this.
woman!
Yeah.
She's like my
Hero.
my inspiration."
Yeah.
And I met her through my friend Candace, who's a plastic surgeon, and Candace is also like very like, "Oh my God,
Yes.
Sharona,
Yeah.
you've met Candace."
Yes.
And she's like, Sharona is like out there, like, she's herself, and she's talking to all these, like sitting next to all these men in this leadership position and kind of having a voice. But she wasn't the norm,
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I will tell you that one of the things I said, I'm going to start building my social media so that when medical students and residents see me, they say, I can be that too.
Yes.
And I can be authentic and I could be myself, but I also doesn't mean that I'm not good at my job. That makes me better at my job.
Yes.
And so that's the reason why I kind of wanted to authentically brand myself. And that's why I don't want to focus on breast cancer alone. I want to focus on the human part of medicine that women have, that we deal with, that nobody talks about.
Sure.
I will tell you, we
Going
talk about
beyond like the full spectrum.
and I will tell you, nobody talks about their failures in medicine.
Nobody talks about their failures in anything, especially women.
Yes. So actually, this is something that I talked about and again, I go back to this symposium because it just happened
Yes.
about 3 weeks ago. And I said, nobody ever says, when I was growing up in medicine, when I had failures, which I've had 1,001 failures
Yeah.
in my whole career, I can start like,
Sure.
I mean, I'm going to write a book one day about like how I failed to succeed. And I remember looking around me and saying, none of these women have failed.
Yeah.
They made it look so
Easy.
Mm. And I felt so lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not judging them. I think that's the world that they lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they were taught, never to show their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
That it made them more regimented to the fact that they only showed the successes.
Yes.
And it made everybody else who was failing feel inappropriate.
Yeah.
Behind them.
Yeah.
So one of the things
and
that
maybe
I did
had some people give up because of that.
1,000%, because
Yeah.
they said I failed and
Yeah.
nobody else has failed before me, and I'm the
Yes.
only loser
Yes.
in this journey, and I can't make it because nobody else has failed before me. And I remember like when I was going through this, I stopped saying that everything was fine.
Yeah.
And I talked to my medical students and I talked to my residents about times that I've failed and things that have been really, really tough in my life and in my career.
Yeah.
Sasha,
Yeah.
like I didn't match my first, my second, my third, my fourth.
Yeah.
Match is like the process that when you apply for residency.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't match. And I was like, I wanted to be a surgeon. And you know how many people told me to give up? Including in my family.
Mm-hmm.
You should just do something else, Lucy. You're not going to be a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I quit many times. And because I looked around and nobody told me that they failed. Everybody was like, "Oh, I'm here.
I'm here
now.
I've arrived, but
I've arrived.
I didn't tell you the journey to get to my arrival."
It's like the James Bond movies.
Yeah.
The James Bond movie, the guy is always like, actually the new James Bond movies, the James Bond gets his hair undone and a little bloody. But the old James Bond movie.
Oh, he walks out of like a burning building completely like, yeah.
His hair.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, how did he change? Where did there wasn't even a bathroom.
Yeah.
That's exactly
the
what
environment.
I want.
Yeah.
I want to be the modern day medical female version of James Bond that shows that we have all scars, that our hair gets messy.
Sure.
That it's not easy to get to where I am. And somebody the other day I was talking to somebody, he's like, "Oh, it looks like you got what was it that she mentioned? you took the anyways, we were looking at my
Fastest
CV.
route or
She looked at my CV and she's like, "Oh my God, you've gone from like
fast tracked?
fast track."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh my God, you've done all of this in like 9 years.
Yeah.
Like you got the fast track." And I said, "Well, maybe the fast track, but not the easy track,
Yeah.
because I have not gone here for my for
Yeah.
anything other than the virtue of hard work
Yeah.
and dedication.
Sure.
Not because, not because of my, I'm no Sofia Vergara here.
Yeah.
And so, not to take away from the fact that she's a great actress. I'm just saying,
In
physically,
which role?
in which, but you know what I mean? So I was a little bit upset about that. And
Yeah.
I said, you know how many times I failed? Actually, my answer was like, you know
Yeah.
how many times I failed? I failed from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I've continued to fail. And every time I fail, now
And I
instead
will
of getting,
continue. Yeah.
by the way, now when I fail, I say there is an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
There is an opportunity to rebuild.
Yes.
There's an opportunity for me to find what that I was doing wrong. If not, I would have continued on autopilot.
Yes.
And autopilot is never good in a career, in your life, in anything.
Yeah.
That's when you lose opportunities to succeed, to get better, to improve, for change, good change, get rid of the bad, come in with a new stuff that may be better, that's adapting. It's, you're fluid. Life is fluid.
Sure.
Things that you needed 10 years ago are not the things that you're going to need the next 10 years of your life. So anyways, and so that's what I want to, it's an ever evolving, continuous work that I'm doing with my social media. I will tell you, I have yet to do it kind of full
force.
Full force, because I know the amount of energy that it's going to take. And I am not in that place right now. I'm not telling you I won't. But it is definitely on my bucket list of things to do. But you know what?
But you have been breaking the mold, whether it is like publicly on social media. I mean, I think you're doing it in the academic world, where, the leather pants walk in first day, make a statement. I think if a man walked in with his leather pants, like, the front desk woman would have been like, badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Why is the conception different? Exactly. Why is it a harder track for women to make and break that mold? Because it has been historically, and it still continues to be that way. Specifically you as well, from being a Hispanic woman as well as a woman, and breaking through the mold in terms of the position that you're sitting in today.
I think it's hard because people don't like change.
Yes.
And change is uncomfortable.
Yes.
You know what I always say? I have learned to become comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yes.
And when you do that,
preach.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
When you do that, it's like, when you meditate in the middle of like
you see a different side of yourself.
It's almost like a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I have superpowers, because none of us do.
Yeah.
But it's almost like this gift that you learn to have. Like, listen, I always say this. I cut on people for a living. I operate on people. There's nothing more uncomfortable.
Sure.
Than that.
Yeah.
But that's how I realized when I was like, wait a second. I operate on people. That is very uncomfortable for the general population. Yeah. I can learn to be uncomfortable outside of the OR.
Yeah.
To be comfortable in the uncomfortable outside of the OR.
Yeah.
How do I do that? It wasn't overnight, and I'm still uncomfortable and really uncomfortable in different scenarios. But I've learned that there is something to be said about being uncomfortable. That gets you out of your comfort zone. It helps you grow. It helps you build stuff. It helps you think of ideas, think outside the box. And I will tell you, people don't like that.
No.
By the way, and I say this because I just gave a talk at Miami at the Miami Breast meeting.
And it resonates, not to interrupt you, but it resonates with entrepreneurship, because people stepping out of the comfort zone, which is the 9 to 5, which I will always reiterate. I'm not saying that one can't be successful in the position that they're currently in an institution or anywhere else, but because you're stepping out and doing the uncomfortable in a comfortable environment, you push past boundaries of the betterment of yourself, right? And I think that if you don't recognize it, when are you going to recognize it to kind of grow in that sense? But yes, go back to what you were saying.
No, but it's all about being a good role model.
Yeah.
And setting the example for others to be able to say, you know what, she did it, I can do it too.
Sure.
And again,
setting the path.
Setting the path.
Yeah.
Nobody has a roadmap for anything in life.
No.
Parenthood, nobody has,
in anything that we do. Even when we start a business. Yeah, it's true. What to expect when unexpected. There is no toolbox to help you set up a business. There's no toolbox in life. There's no toolbox for everything. You're kind of uncovering and discovering and recovering because it's stressful, you know what I mean, in terms of the whole process.
And by the way, things that happened 10 years ago are no relevant today.
No.
So it's
and
a
it's
fluid
changing
process
faster than 10 years.
because of technology, because of AI, because of the way that we communicate, because we're all connected now. I mean, before when we met, did we have cell phones? Yeah, we had cell phones.
Yes.
But
The old school flip phone Motorola.
we didn't text.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
I was like, hey,
we texted.
Sasha.
It just took a lot longer with
Yeah,
double
A,
digits.
B, C. Oh my God, I missed the C. Oh, I have to start again.
Exactly.
A.
So our messages were very short, 3 words. See ya. Be there. No, sorry. Not these like long-winded messages
that are no longer written by anybody because now AI has answered. But anyways, I'm not saying that people use that all the time, but I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
And so I think ultimately is that creating that brand, creating that sense of like,
I'm sure somebody out there, not to interrupt you, has already started putting AI into our text messages that will come out in the next iPhone.
Oh, I'm sure. Isn't there like an app that you do that already?
Oh, to put it in, to connect it? There probably is.
I get targeted all the time on social media.
Forget about the ad. I'm talking about embedded right there.
Oh, okay. Listen, I don't know. I'm the worst person with like anything that has to do with technology. I'm always behind like a year or two, which just means like light years in technology.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you asked me about was, so it was authenticity and how
breaking the mold,
breaking the mold. And I think for me has truly been the fact that I have been able to match, you put, like I always say, it's put your mouth where your, what is it that saying in Spanish, in English?
Put your foot where your mouth is?
No,
is that
like
it?
kind of make sure that, before you become, if you want to break the mold,
yes,
the first thing you have to do is really become
walk
good at
a mile in somebody's shoes. Maybe that?
Well, no.
Okay.
Well, I guess you could walk a mile in somebody's shoes too. No, but I was trying to say, like, in order for people to follow you, you have to make sure that you do the work and the diligence.
You're paving the road, as we said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that anybody should do, I mean, you're not going to be a medical student out here, like, talking about breast cancer if you're not a breast cancer expert, right? And so I think it's to do the diligent work to earn your respect in the community. I mean, I've published, I sit in committees. I go to talks.
Yeah.
These are things that are within my community.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of
they're your achievements, recognitions.
But also my colleagues recognize that, right?
Yeah.
And then when you add it with the social media influence or like the combination of the human part or whatever you want to do in your brand and your social media, then that aligns. And that makes it for a stronger brand building, I think, from a medical standpoint.
I like that.
Then me coming up from the first day when I was like a graduate, I'm going to become now the breast expert.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to show something for it. And so I actually, when I talk to medical students and residents about imposter syndrome, I know I'm kind of completely removing myself from the conversation because we're talking about imposter syndrome, but it's actually something that I've done and I still do, by the way, from imposter syndrome. Like, how do you break the mold and how do you stand up in a room that doesn't look like you and say, I'm Lucy de la Cruz, here I am, and I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to be okay with it and I'm going to feel comfortable in the uncomfortable. It's something that I always tell the students and the residents is, as you go in your career, start writing things that are facts about you. Like, not the perception of you, but facts. Like, have you written papers? Yes or no? Yes.
Where you graduated from, where you did your so when you guys graduate from medical school, you go on to do a fellowship where you did your fellowship from.
Yes, boom. And then in that, you add things that people along the way may have shared with you, right? So like, I have this mentor that I love. He's incredible. And he wrote on my evaluation, and I every time I see him, I'm like, thank you so much, because that really empowered me.
Yeah.
And he wrote, I can see a glimmer of greatness in Lucy.
Yeah.
By the way, when I was a fellow, I was super insecure. I would have never spoken the way that I do today. Not that I'm, that I'm.
No,
here,
it's because the way you were raised in the medical environment then. It didn't feel like you could come out and say something.
And even in my culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm Cuban Lebanese.
Yeah.
So guess what? In my culture, you make your brother's bed, my bed. You do what the men are like. I was raised by someone who was raised very old school, and women should not be very vocal and they have to be aligned with the societal norm. And so when he wrote that, I remember I wrote that down and I wrote that down in my agenda.
Yeah.
And every time I thought, like, a second guessed myself in my first year in practice, I remembered that my mentor had seen something that maybe I didn't see it
See it in the
yet,
beginning.
but he saw it.
Oh, wow. It's
And
amazing how you
therefore,
remembered that. How it
listen,
just
I
it
remind
clicked in your mind though. Not remembered,
it,
that it clicked.
you know what it is? I call them sliding door moments.
Yes.
That for me was a pivotal moment in my life
Yeah.
that it it actually has transcended from 2016 till today.
Yeah.
I remind myself, even when I don't feel that I can be great, because I'm very far from it, that I strive to be great
Yes.
in the way that he saw that I could be.
Yes.
It, like, completely. And so those are things that I tell the
That's
residents of American
amazing.
Dreams. Write everything down that people that you respect have told you about you,
Yeah.
their perception, not your perception, things that you've done, physically done, and then look at them every day and don't take them for granted. You're not perfect.
Yeah.
Also, write down the failures, but write down the good things too.
Yeah.
And look at them and evaluate yourself and say, do the failures outweigh the success?
Yeah. Majority of the
And then
time they
that,
will.
and eventually
Yeah.
you'll have more successes, or even better, I mean, maybe less successes, but greater successes than the failures.
Yeah.
And that'll give you a sense to be able to have that ownership, to be able to break molds, to be able to sit in a room and
I
talk
love that.
and
Love that.
have the need to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so now, it's all a matter of not becoming overly confident, of being thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
on how you communicate. You make mistakes, and when I do, I acknowledge them. There's nothing wrong with that. I bring them up to, like, I teach the medical students about it. I teach the residents. I say, listen, we're all human.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning and you know, and so these are all real things that, the older we get, I think the more mature and seasoned you get.
Yes.
But it's not because I've succeeded every time. It's because I failed so many times before that I was like, how do I get this sense of, I don't let all these failures
Mm.
overcome the successes I've had in my life.
Yeah.
And how do I gain myself authority of my emotions and to be able to be successful at what I do, but also be able to give other people role models for them to look at me and say, you know what? If Lucy did it, I can do it too, because she's failed, but she's also succeeded.
Yeah. I mean, and it's what sets you apart. I mean, in the world, connecting it to marketing, I mean, it's what makes you unique, and it what also makes you stand out from this crowd. I mean, it's noisy and it's getting noisier. I will keep saying that, no matter what industry you're in. So how do you differentiate yourself in
By
comparison
being
to somebody?
authentic,
Yes.
by saying what my journey has looked like, that it's
Yes.
not perfect, that it's messy, that it's
Yes. And it's
painful,
okay.
and it's okay
Yeah. And it's
because
okay.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is such a beautiful journey
Yeah.
that
Because
if
it's always going
everybody,
to make you who you are.
listen, 1,000%,
Yeah.
that idea that perfection is the ultimate goal, it is actually not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't want perfection. There's so much beauty in the imperfection.
Yeah.
Actually,
Totally.
no
Well
one's
said.
perfect, first
Yeah.
of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, you'll never succeed if you're trying to achieve perfection.
Yeah.
Again, it's being comfortable in the
And
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
And the uncomfortable in the realm of the world is not being perfect and being fine with it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So much pertinent information in this, like for anybody to take away from. The one question I do have for you also is, and this was the third point that I had made earlier. How are you going to take this back into the education of the medical school? You have to. You have to build something. You have to
I mean,
ensure that like personal branding becomes a part of somebody's medical school. Honestly.
so I'm going to tell you
Not
what.
like at symposiums when you guys are doctors already, you know?
So this is so interesting that you say that.
And I want to add one more point because I don't want to let you forget your thought process, but AI is coming into medicine and it's going to come in stronger into medicine. There is going to be a separation of human to human more and more so. So as that happens, how do we take the good from that? And then how do we maintain the human touch, which is a lot through your branding, right?
So people ultimately want to have the human touch,
Mhm.
the contact. I mean, if I was when I've been patient, by the way, the physicians and the doctors that I've pursued have been human.
Yeah.
Like, I want the human touch.
Yes.
And I will tell you that thought that you could be a robot, like not a robot, but like very disconnected from your patient because you're so good, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
That is not something that is well tolerated or accepted by the newer generation of patients. And that is perfectly fine. I think it's just.
Yeah.
Now, I think going back to what you were talking about marketing and kind of, so in the past, and this, we brought this up last year in our Society of Surgical Oncology, they had a brainstorming session with all women. Women, it was the women's first SSO.
Yeah.
And it was a luncheon. And they put on the table like little things that you write, like what ideas, brainstorming ideas to bring in more members and
Yeah.
to like engage new members. And one of the things that I said is that we tried to teach leadership to surgeons
Yeah.
when we don't even have the tools, because nobody in medical school teaches you how to be a leader.
Yeah.
They teach you how to treat cancer. They teach you how to treat disease.
Yeah.
But there's no infrastructure to treat how to manage economics, how
Yeah.
to talk to employees, how to manage a
So
budget.
true.
Like, there's none of that.
No.
So you are graduating this group of people that are going to be leaders without any skill set to be leaders.
Yeah.
No skill sets to adapt to the 2020. I always say I do 21st century surgery when patients come to me, and they're like, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Because there's people that are still stuck in the 20th century."
Yeah.
And maybe that's okay with some, but that's not okay with me.
Yeah.
And that's the same idea. So we talked about leadership, and I said, listen, I could sit here and talk to my fellows and my residents and my colleagues about how I'm a great leader. I don't think I have all the tools. I participate in a women's in leadership, which is a huge company that actually a bunch of Deloitte and a lot of companies
Sure.
hire
Yeah.
and send their employees there
Yeah.
to get leadership teaching. And I go to this meeting every year, and I'm like, none of these things I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, I now I've become familiar because I've attended the meeting multiple times as a guest speaker, and I've taught some of the things, but there's a lot of things that I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't we hire somebody
Yeah.
to give us to give a talk about and a whole day course on how to have different, like, 3 things, the basic things of leadership. And I said the same thing about marketing. I said, we need to start in significantly
Empowering.
changing the
Yeah.
way that we consider medicine.
Yeah.
Medicine is about being able to communicate to your staff. You're a surgeon. You don't have to be a chief to be able to say that you need to know how to lead in the operating room. We are managing. There's a nurse, a circulator. There's a scrub tech. There is an anesthesiologist who you're collaborating with. In my OR, there could be anything between 6 and 12 people
Yeah.
in one surgery.
Yeah.
And you are trying to make everybody work and be cohesive.
Sync. Yeah.
In sync.
Mhm.
And these are really important things. And also, how do you, like, okay, so if nobody knows how to find a doctor, how are you going to differentiate yourself, like you said, from the quack,
Yeah.
from the dad doctor? And you need to know the importance of it. I think a lot of physicians are now hiring marketing
Yeah.
agencies. I will tell you, a lot of my colleagues now are like, actually, I had one of my friends called me the other day. She goes, Lucy, I want to do what you're doing in social media. Who does? I'm like, I do it myself.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But I want to hire somebody.
Yeah.
It's expensive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It costs.
Yeah.
And I have 2 small children who I like, they go to private school and
Yeah.
have an nanny and all that stuff. But that's what I'm saying. Maybe when they're like, when I'm like, they're out of the house.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be too late because I'll be retired in somewhere in an island with the sand.
Well, then you
between
can
my
be
toes.
teaching it. You can be teaching the
But
self-branding
I
for
will
medicine.
tell you know what? I will tell you that would make a significant impact. I mean, there's a fellowship that I just finished called the Cura Personalis Fellowship that I
Yeah.
meet with medical students from the first year during their first and second semester of
Mhm.
the school year. And that's one of the things that I told them about. I said, listen, you need to start educating yourselves about leadership
Mhm.
and about how to create your brand.
Mhm.
These are my 2 things. And it doesn't come from your attendings. It doesn't come from your lectures.
It's going to come from people who are on the ground like you.
No, but it also comes from people like you.
Yeah.
People
It
that
does.
are.
It does.
I'm not in marketing.
Yeah.
I can't teach marketing.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, it's not the concept of teaching marketing, but you understand how to brand yourself within your space, and then somebody can support you from the marketing mentality to bridge that gap together, right? Because
that's what I'm saying, the collaboration.
the collaboration.
Because I will tell you that our mindset is we can do it all.
Yeah.
We can teach ourselves leadership. We can, teach each other leadership. We can teach each other marketing.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, no, we need to hire a professional.
Yeah.
Like somebody who knows the ins and the out of the industry
Yep.
to tell us. And we know what is going to work for our patient population,
Yep.
for our audience, but we don't know how to implement it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is kind of like where I left it off, to be honest. with some of my colleagues and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, I'm going to continue to talk about it, be more vocal about it. And I think in the breast surgery world, not that many people are doing this whole, being out there, and the other thing I say is that people make institutions, institutions don't make people.
Yeah. Mic drop. It's true. It's true. It's so true. And that's translatable anywhere.
Everywhere. And I think if you are unique, if you bring quality work
Yeah.
and you are trustworthy and you are hardworking and you put in the effort,
Absolutely.
and you will reap the benefits. And no matter where you are, no matter what institution you've been in, again, I tell this to my medical students, my residents, my colleagues. I say, you will, if you do the due diligence,
Yes.
you will make the institution. The institution will not make
100%.
you. Just because you're in a great institution doesn't make you great.
Yeah, I
And
completely
vice versa.
agree. Completely agree. Wow.
So that's it.
Okay, my second to last question. Why breast cancer surgery?
Oh, so, I believe in defined intervention. And I've wanted to work with women since I was in medical school. I thought I wanted to do OBGYN, and then I didn't really fully embrace the field as I should have
Yeah.
for someone who's going to devote their life to it. But I love the surgical component of the OBGYN. So I said, well, I'm going to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
And I went mostly initially for the technical part, which was the surgery part. And then I met this amazing mentor my second year in residency, and she was a breast surgeon. She had trained in Ireland,
Yeah.
and she was pretty much avant-garde
Mm-hmm.
in her field.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell in love with the fact that I could take care of women,
Yeah.
that I could create relationship with my patients,
Yeah.
that I wasn't just, I took out your gallbladder, not to undermine. I mean, I'm obviously a general surgeon as well. I don't do gallbladders anymore,
Yeah.
but, have that personable relationship where I know that I'm going to remember them and they're going to remember me.
Yeah.
And for some reason, for me, that was very important to have that in my field. And then the other thing is that I had some time in my life, very early on in my life, I felt in my heart of hearts that maybe God put a message in my heart that I was going to touch one woman's life.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for that woman. I always say hopefully is not someone that, hopefully is and hopefully is not, because it's going to be very bittersweet.
Yeah.
Somebody who I love or maybe it's going to be, I'm going to touch that person for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always like thinking, who is this one person that I'm supposed to touch?
I'm sure you've already touched more than one.
You know what? Yes, but this is like a mission that I was put on.
Yeah.
Kind of like your original design.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So my original design when I was created,
Yeah.
whatever that
Sure.
is, in the ether,
Yeah.
in the heavens, or wherever you want to believe
What is
in.
that? Yeah.
It was this person that I was supposed to come across in my life.
Yeah.
And this is the field that is going to allow me to do that.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm in the pursuit of that. And once I do that and I feel I've fulfilled that one person's, that one person in my life that I'm supposed to touch, I'm going to retire.
Oh, I love that. That was beautiful, Lucy. So what is your Instagram handle? I will link everything in the podcast on the bottom, but just so that everybody can hear it from an audio standpoint so they can follow you.
Girly_surgeon. And girly with a Y.
Yes.
_surgeon.
I love it. I love it. So many lessons from this conversation that can be translated into any industry. This was fantastic. I really appreciate the time with you.
Oh, Sasha, I love you.
Thank you, Lucy. Love you too.
Bye.